Hi guys, so today I am going to be doing something a little bit different. I decided that I really want to do a set of companion pieces. So I'll be doing two different illustrations that are meant to be displayed together and viewed together. I've always loved companion pieces and sets of illustrations of a series where they go together. There's just so much more story to it, and it's so interesting to see what the similarities and the differences and what's actually going on with that. There's just a lot more impact to them, at least for me. So yeah, I've done a few of them at the beginning of this year during school, and I loved it, so I decided I would like to do another one. So in this video, it'll have a little bit of a different format. I'm starting out doing the sketching and the line art for the first piece, and then the second half of the video will be me doing that same process with the second piece. So I decided to go ahead and have them in the same video. I wanted to be able to talk about the similarities and differences in what I was doing so that they would be cohesive together, but also be able to stand alone. When I started out this piece, I really didn't have much of an idea at all. I was talking to my husband about it, and we were talking through what the story was that I wanted to show and how I wanted to show it, and we were both able to bring a lot of new ideas about the story and how to show it and how to illustrate it. And it just really evolved between that conversation and this narrative that I really wanted to tell, and he was really excited about it as well, that he was able to put input into it. So I definitely owe quite a bit of the narrative and the idea behind these two pieces to him. It's so helpful to have someone to be able to bounce ideas off of and double check and critique my work to make sure that it's coming across clearly and the way that I want it to. I definitely suggest having someone to critique your work. It helps so much to be able to know that it's coming across right, that everything is clear, that that element that you drew in is reading correctly and not confusing, which I know happens to me all the time, where I think it's clear, I know what it is because I drew it and it makes sense to me, but when I show it to him or someone else, they're confused, they're not sure what's actually happening. So it helps a lot to be able to see it from a different perspective from someone who hasn't watched it as it's progressed, like the artist has. I've also been really inspired lately to really focus on creating a story and a narrative in each of my pieces from now on. It's something that sometimes I get a little bit in a rut where I just create cool images, things that I like how they look, but in the end they don't have that same depth. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I love simple, clean illustrations and drawings, but that's something that I think will really make my pieces much more engaging to my audience, where there's something that can be read from it and interpreted and imagined about, and just kind of see what caused this to happen or what's the story before this. So the idea for these two pieces that me and my husband had talked about and worked through and we were really inspired by was how these two people can be connected by these little keepsake photographs. So one will be in a locket and the other one is going to be taped on like a dashboard. And there's a little bit more to that story that I wanted to tell, but I think I'll go ahead and just let it speak for itself, and you guys can go ahead and interpret it how you'd like. There's one way that I like to think of it, but I also like the idea that there's a few other ways that it can be interpreted, and so that's pretty exciting for me, is to be able to create these pieces that there can be a whole huge story behind it that I've thought about and I've worked out, and only this small clip of it can be seen. And I really like that aspect of art, that you can see more of this narrative and this story that's beyond what's actually just being shown there. So now we can get a little bit more into the actual making of the two pieces. I really wanted to make sure that both of them stood alone, that they would have their own correct composition, but also they really needed to look like one cohesive piece together. They needed to be two parts of one whole. So one thing that I made sure to do was that I did them right next to each other. I drew the first one out and then I immediately did the second one. I find that sometimes when I space two pieces out, especially like for school where I have multiples from an assignment, if I space it out too much, sometimes they tend to change a little bit, my technique, or even like the width of the lines. they can change. So the closer I do them together, the more consistent I am able to make them. Okay, so we are pretty much done with the sketching and the line art phase of these two pieces. For my next video, I will be working on coloring and finishing these two up. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you can catch all the future art videos. And until then, I will see you next time. Bye.